Today, here on the little planet, everything revolves around an art project that I had long wished would come to life. As much as I like to paint my own pictures, I've always thought that it could be exciting to work with someone else on one and the same piece of art, and to see what comes out of it and how it might feel. And since musicians also often work together on a piece of music, why not two female painters on one painting? But then it actually took many years until the time finally came. The fact that this dream project could become reality has to do with the fact that I met Annette. Annette is a full-blooded artist who, just like me, is absorbed in her creative processes, always in motion, likes to try things out and can also get involved in new things. And she paints simply quite enchanting mandalas. At the moment, she's studying with a wonderful artist Yvonne Lamberti and is working very intensively with so-called, I try to speak it in English, gribograms. If you want to know more about this, please have a look at the info box. There you will find a direct link. Already when Annette and I met for the first time, a sisterhood was noticeable. This same love for all that is beautiful and creative, and the joy of finding one's own expression in a playful way. When one entered the living spaces of the other, it was immediately a familiar terrain. Yes, a coming home. At some point I dared and asked her if she would like to take the risk and share one and the same canvas with me. Annette immediately agreed to always alternate with me on this project. We also agreed to take notes regularly, and we wanted to be very attentive to how each of us felt about it over and over again. What thoughts, experiences and impressions it would hold for us. And of course, we were both very excited about the painting itself that would gradually emerge. I had at this time only one not yet painted canvas left with a format 50 by 20 centimeters, and I thought briefly that there was not necessarily very much space to express ourselves on it together. Nevertheless, I then presented exactly this canvas, and so began our journey together. I was relieved not to have to be the one who first had to put something on the canvas. And I was happy not to have to decide where to even start. At the edge? At the top of the bottom? Or possibly centrally? In the middle? Yes, that was Annette's task. And I was a little bit ashamed to have burdened her with it. But at the same time, I was very curious to see how she would start our project. And then she brought the canvas back to me and had chosen the upper left corner for the beginning, and I remember how surprised I was that she had also included a text. Annette told me that at first it had actually unsettled her to be the first of the two of us to start painting. And that at first she didn't know at all what she wanted to paint now. And almost at the same time, the sentence literally emerged in her. "Oh, I can't do that at all, and certainly not with such a great artist." Her inner critic was referring to me, and when Annette told me this later, it actually made me feel a little uncomfortable. Because what an artistically inclined person sometimes feels worse than negative criticism is actually praise. Often we are then embarrassed. So then my inner critic was active. Annette then simply started with what she likes to paint the most. And so the upper left corner became a part of a mandala. And suddenly she was very happy to be able to start painting, and would have found it even more difficult at that moment to have to tie in with something, to have to continue something. So now it was my turn, and Annette's pattern had inspired me so much that I started immediately. And then I did something I didn't think about for a second. The little figure, which I didn't know Annette saw as a dancer, became a dancing Sufi in an instant, connected to Annette's mandala by a red string. In the upper right corner I added a text from Rumi, which I found fitting. When my husband saw that day what I had done with Annette's figure, he said that he wouldn't have dared to do that. And only at that moment I realized that this could also be perceived as an absolute assault on my part, and I was frightened. For me, Annette was done with her part of the painting when she gave me back the canvas, and so I had simply continued where she had left off. My initial joy at my spontaneous input to paint the Sufi was transformed, and I was no longer at all sure that Annette would like it as much. How would she feel about it? Would she possibly find my action impertinent? And I longed for the day when I could hand the canvas back to her. In other words, I wanted to have clarity about it soon. Yes, ultimately get it over with as quickly as possible. I can't tell you how relieved I was when Annette was happy that I had turned her initially intended dancer into a dancing Sufi. Yes, even more. She could accept the change well. And she was looking forward to continue painting, and had already on the same day a rough idea what she would paint. For Annette it was clear that the dancer should now get an audience. Maybe a story would come out of it, and the phrase, "the dance of life," emerged in her mind. She told me that in the beginning she really had palpitations while painting. But then it turned into deep joy. There was supposed to be a curtain, and she had to smile inwardly as she thought briefly, "Curtain up for the happiness of life." And she had to think of a theater scene, when little by little one figure after the other and a tile floor emerged. When the picture came back to me, I was downright delighted. So now it was my turn again, and as easy it had been for me at the first time to get started immediately, now I was suddenly completely at a loss. Yes, unsure how to proceed. Out of sheer desperation, I came up with an idea that was pretty weird for me at the time. I painted my left palm with brown color and then, after a short hesitation, made an impression in the lower left half. And then I was startled. What had I done? Had I now destroyed our picture? What was I supposed to do with it now? Now the paint was already on the canvas, so what now? This was really not a good feeling, and I kept thinking, after all, this is not just my painting. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I saw a tree in my handprint, in whose structures I saw two brushes. And there were suddenly also little entities that I could work out. I remember thinking how crazy that was, but at the same time, I was now enjoying painting. The same day I called Annette and warned her in advance that I had claimed a lot of canvas for myself and hoped that this wouldn't make her sad or perhaps angry with me. But I didn't tell her what I had painted. And now imagine, Annette told me later that she had dreamed of a big hand in connection with our picture in this very night. In addition, our picture in her dream was 2 by 2 meters large and was held by a huge painted tree, which was under our picture. That gave me goosebumps, and I found that really amazing, because I hadn't told her about my handprint at all. Moreover, I had also dreamed of the picture that night, but had no concrete memories of it when I woke up. We seemed to be somehow connected with each other on a deeper, not rationally explainable level about the common work on this picture, somehow vibrating with each other. After my tree had received a blue sky as background and a few blossoms and leaves from me, Annette then completed the scenery with a cozy-looking house, and on top of the tree she connected the upper and the lower part of the picture with a Sufi again. To me it looked like this figure was supporting the upper scene. And the tree trunk, which once represented my wrist, then got a beautiful chain. And then it was my turn again. And at this point we both felt like we had gotten into a bit of a flow in painting. When I put in the little landscape, my heart felt light. I was no longer constantly concerned with what Annette would say about it, how she wouldn't now judge it, what she would think about what I paint, and then also about me. Not that I suddenly didn't care, but I felt a safe certainty that I was allowed to expose myself to Annette with all my forms of expression. I could be daring, and so then the black cat found its way onto Annette's house roof. No, on our house roof. Suddenly everything in this picture was our common, and Annette felt the same way. We had begun to trust each other more and more. Yes, we trusted that the other could let us be in our always so very own expression. And yes, when something like this happens, then suddenly many things become possible. Then birds and a cat sit in harmony with each other on the roof of a house. And just as Annette had begun our picture, so it was she who then completed it and filled the last remaining space. I love the stargazer she painted so wonderful. To me, it symbolizes both the joy of exploring new spaces and the wonder and amazement that Annette and I have experienced over and over again during our artistic journey together. We experienced ourselves with all our old patterns, ways of thinking, beliefs and feelings, with our insecurities. We were able to become aware of our occasional self-judgments and fears, but just as often we felt transported back to our childhood in a pleasant way, finding ourselves deeply immersed in playful activity, full of lightness. Our painting together made us grow, each one for herself, always dealing with all her themes. And we both, Annette and I, also we became piece by piece more and more, just like our picture, to a new big and whole. This experience was so beautiful for us that we are now in the moment already again in the middle of the next art adventure together on the road. Thank you, Annette, for continuing to go on this journey with me and for holding up the flag of a common artistic expression. And who know, dear ones, you who have traveled with us this far, maybe this would be something for you too. How nice that you were here on the small planet, which, as always, can also be your small planet.
Wait.